Got it.
Share my screen. All right, so from a WordPress news and events standpoint, like I said, it's a little bit slow right now. It's in the summer, obviously. But just a heads up for people, and we'll post this again as it gets a little bit closer. The Page Builder Summit is coming up again in September. It's free. You can register right now for it. I'll put the link in the chat after I stop sharing slides. This one's good, even though it says Page Builder Summit. And I know we were talking earlier about Elementor. But there's a lot of topics in here now that I think are beyond the typical page builders of Elementor and Divi. In fact, last year, I'd say quite a few of the topics were just general purpose WordPress related. So you can get definitely a lot of benefit out of this one. I know that the presentations, I believe, are primarily pre-recorded, but then the people presenting are available on it. To answer. Is this the one, Peter, I forget, is this the one that you presented last year? Was it at the Page Builder Summit?
No,
That was amplified.
Amplified.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Yeah. This one, from what I recall, it's a similar format too, that a lot of them are pre-recorded. But then the nice thing too is just sign up. Even if you can't attend a particular day, they'll send out links and you can watch them afterwards for a certain number of days. After a certain number of days, they go behind kind of like a paid tier where you can view them, indefinitely, I guess. So definitely worth checking out. Like I said, coming up September 18th through the 22nd. And then we'll talk about this one in quite a bit. So I'm going to stop here on this. So Peter, I'll jump to you for a second. We want to do a tool and tip, and then I'll jump back if that's okay. I'll jump back to WordPress 6.3. So we'll talk about that maybe for the first 15 minutes or so of this presentation. Is that okay?
Yeah, you got it.
Right.
I will share my screen. There's one other thing that I do want to mention.
Sure.
Upcoming, you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, so we may meet before, well, probably will because it's at the end of the month, but the WordPress Accessibility Day is coming up the end of September. That's another event. And if you check the schedule and you scroll down a little bit, there is a page, let's build and there I am.
I know that guy.
So I will be speaking at the Accessibility Day. This is a 24-hour live event. So I got a nice block of time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. So that's pretty good. With the goal here of, there'll be a lot of talks about all kinds of things related to accessibility, from the reasons and all kinds of things. And me, I kind of like to get right into some of the practical. Okay, let's actually do it. Let's build. So I'll be working on that for the next few weeks to make sure I'm prepped for that. I don't plan to completely wing it, but it is live, so you know how those things go. So
save those slides so we can reuse your presentation
right.
here.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay, so my tool today, and some folks may have seen it, but it's a plugin called PyCalendar. And I've been using a number of plugins together. I will reveal them all, but we'll talk about PyCalendar tonight, maybe later or another meetup. I'll spend some time showing how I use them together. I use PyCalendar, a tool called Publish Press Future, and a tool called Page Links To, even though it's 2 years old here, but it's so simple, it works. But PyCalendar is this nice plugin that allows you to put regular posts or posts really of any type onto a calendar. Why I like that is, up to this point or up to relatively recently, I was using, like many people do, one of the event calendar plugins, probably the most popular one being the events calendar, events calendar by Modern Tribe. There's a number of them out there, but what those plugins do is they basically create an event, if you've used one, as what's called a custom post type. So you have a new type of post when you're going to add content to your website, and then you have all these parameters for venue and time and all these things put on the calendar. What's really nice about PyCalendar is it allows you to take any post and say, now I want to put that on a calendar. And for me and for my clients, why that works really well is a lot of times they don't want to get into all of the details, or they may be copying and pasting things, or or whatever. They just want the thing to show on the calendar. Maybe it's not even an event. Maybe it's something to remind somebody for whatever reason that you might want to have something on a calendar. So on a real quick demonstration of that, I'm going to, work on a live site. That's really good advice, but we'll do it anyway. I'm going to add that plugin called Pi Calendar. Which is right here. I'm going to install it. For anyone who hasn't done a lot of this, this is one way of loading plugins into your site. Plugins adding functionality. I'm going to activate that. And now my Pi Calendar plugin is active. What this now does for me is when I go to posts, if I'm going to add a post, or in this case, we're going to edit a post, I will edit just because it's here, kind of our last, one of our last meetups, not the last one, but so just say I edit this one. And what will happen is when I go to this post, I will have a new option. Oops. Oh, yes. New interfaces, make sure things are open. This is, you go up here to see your options here, but for the post, I will have a new option called Show on Calendar, which you can turn on or off. And then you could set a start date and an end date. And I could say I've already practiced with these, and I could say, okay, that started on May 16th at 6 p.m. and the end date was the same date, May 16th. But this is just an added set of fields for your post. We'll update that and to make that basically make that live and adding those calendar details. Again, showing up here under the calendar tab for that post options. Now what we'll do is we'll very quickly go back to, let's say I just wanted a page. It's different ways of showing the events, but I'm going to go to pages, and I'm going to add a page. And this is very, very simple. Put anything you can do this any number of ways, but let's just say I have a page now I want to call calendar. Maybe introduce it, here is our event calendar, whatever makes sense to do. And then it's just a short code. So PiCal has its own short code. And what's nice is it has short codes with parameters. It might say, put a calendar here and only show posts that have this category or that tag, that type of thing. So we're going to put in a short code. So one way to select in the block inserter is to hit the slash and then just start typing, what kind of block you're going to use. I'm going to use the short code, and I'm going to put in the short code PiCal. That is the short code for Pi Calendar. That's the simplest one. I will very quickly go over it. This is the docs.picalendar.com that lists all the different types of short codes that you can use. I'm going to publish that page, and then I'm going to view the page. And now with that short code, I've got this calendar, and since we're in August, I should be able to go back to May, and there is now that post landing on a calendar with some time. If I click on it, I'll get the excerpt and all about that, or I can then view the post and go right into the details. This is how we post our events when I do our slideshows. So the Pi Calendar plugin has been really useful for me to be able to keep myself or clients just working on posts, and then depending on whether they make it a calendar event, and with these other plugins, the publish, press future, and all, being able to control like what categories and when to show where, and if you want to link to a post or even link out to an external place. I've got a lot of control just by putting things as posts, as opposed to adding a plugin that gives, well, this is a plugin. It's not as large and doesn't have the whole overhead of an events plugin, nor does it force the client, for example, to fill in all the various fields of the venue. Now, a lot of cases, that's exactly what you do want to have. But for those clients that just want to put something on a calendar and then to be able to share that calendar, and the calendar is viewable in different formats too. So, you know, you've got the month classic. You could do a list of events. You know, we've got nothing here. So you can see how this works like a regular, you know, like many of the calendar plugins, but tied to your post. I'm wondering if anyone's ever seen this or used it. I know a few have seen it because it was featured in a couple other podcasts and all, but it's pretty cool. I like it.
It's neat. Jean, raise your hand.
Yes, is this just the default WordPress calendar?
No, so, yeah, it's a completely the plugin creates its own calendar, and then there is a pro version that would also give you far more, you know, layout capabilities and things like that. But it is defined by the plugin, so it's not just. Okay. Yeah, it's not. I know what you're saying. So, like, if you say, okay, I posted on a certain date, and here's my default. That's existed for years. This is much more about putting, and you could, you know, your calendar can go out in the future. So if I put this, you know, our next events, we could say, okay, I'm posting it now, but I want it to be on my calendar for, you know, October 11th, kind of thing, where you can see, like, we could say, we're going to tell you about these events, but we're going to land them on our calendar wherever we want based on those parameters that are now available to you on that post.
It's neat. Yeah, it's a lightweight. Looks like a neat lightweight kind of tool.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
All right, back to you.
I never saw it before. All right, let me grab. Oh, let's see. Welcome everyone else who joined. I know a couple more people joined. So let's. So I'm going to do an overview of WordPress 6.3. I'll share my screen in a second, and I'm going to try to keep it pretty short for 10 minutes, unless people have questions as I'm going through, and then feel free to raise your hand or whatever. And in fact, I think I'm going to do that. 1 second here. I'm going to yeah, so if you have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand, and Peter, let me know if people raise their hands, or just put it in the chat window as well too. So let me share my screen. So back to my slides. Oops, where'd my slides go? Where did my slide go? Sorry, Zoom window. Get out. There we go. So last week on August 8th, WordPress released version 6.3, codenamed Lionel, named after Lionel Hampton, the jazz artist. So this release, like I said, there's some interesting pieces to it. I don't think it was the biggest, in my opinion, one of the biggest releases out there. So we probably won't spend a lot of time. In the past, we've sometimes devoted an entire meetup to just reviewing the new release. But this one, I kind of feel like it's more of an evolution versus revolution, which is probably a good thing, because sometimes we can't take these major releases that happen, especially in the summer. So here's some of the highlights, and I'll do quick demos on these as well too. So creating and syncing block patterns. And again, this is, in the past, we had the idea of reusable blocks. Now it's slightly a name change in it. It's now called synced patterns. They pretty much behave the same way that reusable blocks did. If you're using a block theme, we'll talk about that in a little bit in the demo. They show up in a couple of different places. If you're using one of the classic non-block themes, you can still see the patterns underneath the block inserter tool. I probably won't show that in a demo unless someone wants to look at that later. So just the key thing to remember here is now when you see this term, synced patterns, so that's basically what it is. It's a reusable set of blocks. Again, we've had that since, I'm not sure what version of WordPress. But that leads into the site editor. So this is something that today is specifically for block-enabled themes. And again, I'll show that in a demo. There were quite a few changes to this. Again, it makes a lot more sense when we look at it together. One of the new features they've added into it is the ability to really create new content from it. So creating new pages. In the past, you were able to create new templates, etc., from it in patterns, but now you can actually create pages from it, which leads to, I think, some discussions are happening now around, is this potentially one of the options for replacing or improving the WordPress admin UI in the near future? So we'll talk about that. I don't think it's entirely settled, but I've seen some discussions recently online about this. So this site editor may be something that you know, you may be using a lot more of, even if you're not using a block theme necessarily. So that, again, I'll show quick demos of these. The couple new blocks, the details block, basically an accordion block, footnotes block, and I'll show a detail, I'll show a quick demo of that. This one to me seems still a little bit, I know the WordPress 6.3 got released last week. I've had some bugs with this still, and I don't know if it's me or because I had a beta version of this before, but I'm going to show this one cautiously. So use this one with caution. And then some nice little things in terms of controls for margins and padding. So it's a little bit easier to set those. A command palette, not really useful to me, but maybe for people who really love the keyboard. I'll show a quick example of things you can do with that. And then a couple other just kind of bells and whistles, some sticky positioning thing. I'll show a quick example of that. And then some of these are really, well, next one's related to more block themes. So you can actually, we have that ability to create like styles and view styles for your theme. Now you're able to actually go back and view revisions, just like you can for poster pages. You can view style revisions and be able to restore back to an old version. So that's nice. You know, there's some audit and history behind that. And then the list view, which I think keeps getting better and better. So it seems like a lot less finicky now. I'm able to really drag things much more precisely than in the past. You have to kind of keep your cursor straight so it wouldn't like shift things around like crazy. So that's improving quite a bit. So let me start, like I said, I'll do a quick demo. I'm gonna try to keep this like literally like 10 minutes at the most. So again, if you've updated, you probably saw this welcome. If you haven't updated, if your sites don't update automatically, this may be something, excuse me, maybe something you want to consider doing fairly soon. There's also a lot of security fixes in this, performance enhancements. We won't go over those. But like I said, in this particular website, this demo website, I'm showing the theme that I'm using. Again, this goes back to some of these things, we talked about this before, are only going to be visible if you're using one of the newer block themes. So in this case, I think I'm using 2023. So this is the one that came with WordPress at the beginning of this year. So this is a block enabled theme. So what that means is I don't have a customizer here. For people who are used to using other WordPress themes, you'd have a customizer where you can change settings. For block themes, you have the site editor. So that's what this is. So as I said, what's changed there, some of it's a little bit subtle. It's a little bit subtle here, but what you can see is now pages show up here. In the past, the site editor was only showing site level information like navigation, that's menus, or styles, site-wide styles, or templates, page templates. Now you're starting to see things like block, again, these are the reusable patterns. I've created one here. So this is a place where you can view them and edit them. And then pages, although not posts, which is a little bit strange as far as I can tell. So I can view my current pages here and go in and edit them directly from this editor. I can also create a new page while I'm in here. So for most folks, you're probably not using a block-enabled theme. I think for most people, this won't be a huge difference for you, a huge value. But as I said, I based on some, maybe just me, based on some of the things I've been reading online, this whole idea of this navigation seems to be like one of the candidates that people are discussing to replace this kind of the old admin dashboard. Elisa, sorry, you should be able to, here you go, unmute yourself, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been using the block themes with all my new sites, and I'm still slowly moving people over. And I think, yeah, it definitely feels like, if nothing else, once you're in the editor, that once you're on a page editing, that's going to be the way that you access all that information instead of on the far right where everything is.
Yeah, I think where it's going to be interesting, and I think some of the discussion and concern people are bringing up is things like, well, what about all the other like plugins that you have, and where are you going to get those properties, et cetera, et cetera. So is this the best navigation for everything? I'd say we're probably still a couple of releases away from seeing this is going to be the final.
It was a big surprise, wasn't it, when you opened up Pages and went, what?
Yeah, I'm like,
Pages? And then it didn't look as good, and it was different. You're like, what's happening here?
Yeah, but not
Yeah.
posts, which I also found strange. Like, why can I edit my pages here but not posts? So that's
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But
Yeah.
I think Laura was asking if you could make your screen full screen. That's one thing I wanted to say.
I will make it bigger. I'm trying to, unfortunately, I need to navigate between multiple apps in the Zoom
Okay.
thing. So hopefully that's a
Thank
little
you.
bit better. Yeah.
Hey, Ray, and can you, I control plus and minus to increase to zoom. Can you do that on your?
Yeah, and I'm not going to stay on this page for very long. So, and again, just from a demo standpoint, once we get into the real demos, I can definitely increase my text size as well too, if that helps people out. Yeah, the purpose of this is really just showing that unless you're using this, again, a lot of people probably won't go in here necessarily. I'll show quickly, as long as I'm here, the styles. So I don't know if I even have a style. So again, this is the idea of that style book. Oh, here it is. So now you have a history of, let's say I've changed some of my styles across the theme. Now I'm able to, just like I can for posting pages, I can view revisions and I can go back to old revisions of style. So that's a nice thing. Again, it just wasn't there in the past. So let me jump to some of the other ones. I think there are probably more people will see. So let me edit this page. I created just 2 quick demo pages. So the first thing is, we talked about this already, this idea of reusable blocks, which are now called synced blocks. So the idea behind this is, I've created this page again just for demo purposes. You don't have to watch me create all these different sections, but I've created this column that has a paragraph. It has some text in here and has a button. And what you can do for what I did in this particular example is I saved this as a shared pattern. So now this shared pattern, you can see visually in the list view, there's this icon that says, oh, this is a shared pattern. So what can I do with this shared pattern? Well, on other pages, let me just go to this one for a second. I can edit and add that in. So if I want to drop that pattern into the bottom of this page, when I go to my patterns, actually, if I go to this synced, I keep saying shared, synced patterns, you can see that's that synced pattern. So I can drop it in here. So that's actually, the idea of reusable has been around for a little while. But what's different now is, before it was a little bit of a pain to find all these synced patterns. Well, now, as I said, back on the other screen, just get onto this for a second. Back here in the editor, I can go in and under my patterns, I can see all of them here and modify them. If you're not using a block enabled theme, I believe you can still see it under the block inserter. And again, I can show an example of that later if people are interested. So that is the synced pattern example. It changed. Well, so then the other thing is a couple new blocks. Some of these, this one's probably the more interesting of the two, the details block. So if you've used other themes, let's say if you use a page builder like Divi or Elementor, or even some other, if you purchase, let's say, a block plugin or something, the idea of having this accordion block is fairly common these days, but now it's built into core. So the idea behind this is I have a summary. I can put a summary text up here. So it says, here's the summary. And then within this, once it's clicked, you could change the behavior. Let me move my Zoom window again. So I can have it open by default or closed by default. So in this case, I have it closed by default. There's not a lot of styling, unfortunately, that's available out of the box. But it is kind of neat that you can start putting things in it. And it doesn't have to be just text. So you can put buttons in here, I have images and paragraphs, etc. So what this looks like on the front end, let me update this, is if I view my page. Again, it should be familiar to people. This is an accordion, so you can open it, close it, etc., etc. Just kind of a good usability thing. So that's now built into the core blocks with 6.3. The padding and margin. Now you have the ability to adjust this a little bit more easily and more visually. So in this case, I've got let's say a set of columns here. I've got column 1, column 2, and as you can see in column 1. This is underneath the styles. So I think this changed in 6.2, they've separated the settings versus things that are more about styling. So on the styling side, now these controls, and it's kind of neat too, is if you want to get more granular, let's say I just want to change the right padding, I can modify that. So I can move the right padding around. And you can see visually, it's throwing like that shadow around it just to show you what's happening. And again, for spacing as well too. So this is one where people have used page builders, like again, like Divi or Elementor. Some of that stuff's been in there for quite a while, but now these controls are really being built into some of the core blocks, which is a nice thing. And again, you can do this for margin as well. So I'm just showing padding right now. So those were some of the big changes. Let me kind of rattle these last ones off kind of quickly, unless we have questions. So footnotes, I had to create this in a separate page because this was causing me some issues. So basically, let me show it to you on the front end first. So in this case, if you needed to add footnotes to your paragraphs, what you can do now is, and I'll show how you do this, but you can highlight a piece of text. It can be one or many pieces of text, and then you add a little footnote indicator to it. And when you click on that footnote, what it does is it'll scroll down to this footnote section. And a footnote could be either text, it could be a link. I think that's pretty much all you would put into footnotes. And let me just show you this real quick. So this is a core block now. This is one of the new blocks. And as I said, the way it works is a little unintuitive, I guess. Like you first have to start off by applying a footnote. So for example, you need a paragraph first. So in this case, let's say I want to put a footnote on these 3 pieces of text. At this point, you first have to highlight them. And then if you go underneath here, you can say, hey, I want to add a footnote, and this is the footnote 3. It'll then insert this block. Judith Ann, hold on one second. Go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself, Judith Ann.
Okay. I'm going back to the accordion block.
Mhm.
Is there any way of making the header just a little larger or a different color?
I think, let's see, styling wise, what does it really give you? It gives you a little bit, I guess. I don't know if the background is going to apply to just that. Now it applies to the entire block. So I haven't played with it enough to say. I mean, you can always do things with CSS. I assume this is a separate section, the header part, than the rest of the text. I didn't see anything that lets you get to that granular level of detail with just the main controls.
Yeah, I started using that on the website last night, and I'm like, but I want where you have a summary of the detailed columns, I want that a little bit larger, like a heading, and I wanted maybe possibly having the color there.
Yeah, and it seems like it's applying it to it seems like it's applying it to everything as opposed to just that one section. So you can do it you can do anything with CSS, but it doesn't look like right now with version 1 that it's built in.
All right, that was my question.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So footnotes, again, this one use with caution because I don't know, for some reason when I added this to my demo page, it broke my page, meaning the page loaded, but I kept getting some strange errors about an array out of bounds or something. So I don't know if it was because I was in the middle of, maybe it was still at the beta phase of things. Elisa, sorry. Yes. Oh, there we go. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Oh, it didn't let me right away.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So I wanted to say, oh, it's not letting me type. So that's kind of strange. Okay. I wanted to share a link. No, it's not letting me. Anyway, powderstudio.com. If you can just go there for a sec.
Powder Studio.
This is Brian Gardner. Just did this. If you scroll way down, you'll see that accordion thing.
Oh, okay.
A little further down, a little further. There it is. And
Right.
click on that, and then you see the title is bold and the rest isn't.
Oh.
So there must be the ability to do something.
Right. And I wonder if he did it through.
I know I was going to say, can you inspect? I wanted to do it while
Yeah,
you were still there before we went on.
It looks like there's a class, WP Block Details, which I don't know who added this. He may have added this. So it's saying, yeah, that part is strong. Yeah, so I don't know. We have to look at that a little bit. I didn't see that control in here though. Like when I looked at this, I didn't see any ability to just modify that summary part of it. Unless, actually, I wonder if, because it's just text, No. So let me type this in, like, here's where I type in the text, but it didn't actually give me like a regular text control for this.
Okay, I got an idea.
Yep.
So if you go under typography for the whole thing, you can add appearance
Oh, okay.
choices,
Yeah.
and then from there you can set that to bold.
Yeah, it's doing it all though. It seems like it's
Then
doing
you
all the
go
text.
to the paragraph.
Oh, then you unbold it.
Unbold it.
Yeah, you could do
Right.
that.
Oh my goodness. Seriously.
Yeah, one could do that.
One could do that. That could be done. We do
But
like
let's
to
say that
control-
maybe, yeah, use it with caution. But that's a good point though. That there are ways to do it certainly, and maybe it's within CSS. I'll research this one a bit more to see maybe there's a way to just bold the headline because that seems more useful, or style it too. I think that would be better.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's also got rules between it, so he's doing something else in there too, stylistically.
Right.
Did you check out in the under the I tool and see if there's another option of what you could change, like under that block, because it's a new kind of block?
There was nothing. No, it's just grouping. These are the common. Yeah, it's just the common.
just looking a little bit more, even changing font sizes. It's like the whole block is this.
Uh-huh.
And each thing into the details, because you can add different things, because it's basically
Right.
so in the paragraph now you can make it a smaller text, non-bold, do anything you want. So it's sort of, I think the way that you could do it is the way that it's intended to be, even though it's a little backwards-ish. But
Yeah.
that's working, and
Okay.
because it's a paragraph block, you have complete control over it.
Yeah. Let me do a
Right,
little bit
there-
more research too on it too, because maybe as we're going through this a little bit, I can see if there was a setting in here I missed, but I did not.
Ray, could I ask just one more question
Sure.
about this one?
Yep.
If you change the background for that particular one, and then the next accordion block, you change it to a different background. When you close it, does it keep that background color?
It looks like that's a good question. I think it's only when it's expanded, I would imagine. Let's see. Where is my accordion? So here, if I refresh this page, no, because it
Does?
just, yeah, it keeps it just when it's expanded.
So if you added another accordion block right underneath that, it would have you could do a different color?
Yeah, because I think there would be their own sections. And maybe
Okay.
think about that. Yeah, you could put you can have accordions inside of accordions. Be careful, don't put a footnote in there. But yeah, I think you can do that.
No, I won't. All right,
That's
thank
just
you.
that nested. Let me. I see there's a couple other hands up. Let me just go real quick over the last two things, and I'll make sure because I'd rather stop sharing so I can answer your questions real quick. So you showed footnotes. What are the last two things I was going to show? So we showed syncing, we showed the site editor, footnotes, details. Martin, the command palette. Again, this one, I don't know. You can do this anywhere. So I'm using a Mac. So if I do Control K or whatever the wacky window K key is, oops, I need Control on here. Sorry, I could do it from here as well. It basically brings up a window now. This is the command palette, and you could do things like add, new. Oh, if I'm in a certain area, it seems like it's also not working. So if I do, here we go, add, you can add a new post through the keyboard. Interesting, I guess. Again, if you're keyboard heavy, you can probably do some powerful things there. Maybe over time this changes and there's more commands you can do. I personally was like, okay, interesting. I never see myself using it, but others might get more value out of it.
If I can jump in, so the command palette has been discussed as sort of not. They didn't use the word beta wasn't used, but it is something that is in development for sure. I think right now most people, to be very, very honest, are going to be really frustrated because one, the total number of commands just isn't there, but that's extensible. So there'll be people adding a lot more commands. It'll end up working, I think, a little bit like the Turbo Admin plugin,
or I think isn't it going to basically be like a new version of this? Like this slash is very handy, right?
Yeah.
the shortcut in a page, that makes a lot of sense to me. But this is kind of, I guess, more site level stuff. But it still
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it really. Sometimes it seems like it's not in the right context.
Yeah, that's why I think once they get more turbo admin, like once you do something and
Yeah.
you go somewhere else or go to media file, one of the other things that happens, so if anyone runs into this and you go, why did it do that, is the Control K, which is the Windows use, depending on where you are, is also the way you search in your browser. And it will, instead of showing you the box, it's going to jump up and say, oh, you want to go to a different URL or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So-
maybe in the Mac, it seems like I first press it, something's happening in my browser. I don't know what that shortcut is, but
It's probably the same command. So
yeah.
just be aware if you give it a shot and you're like, why did it do that? It's
Let me show these last two. So sorry, I'm probably running longer than I thought on this. So sticky positioning, this is another one too. A lot of using page builders, a lot of them already have this ability. So I think I have an example of sticky positioning here somewhere. All right, let me find my page again. So the idea behind this, and again, you probably don't want to use this in all scenarios, but there could be some where, for example, let's say you have a pop-up, not pop-up, let's say you have a window that you really want to keep on the screen, to keep a visitor's attention, or a header a lot of times if you're doing your own header things. So in this case, as you can see, I've made this part sticky. So as I scroll down, it still stays to the top. It's still, again, you'd have to do a lot more styling to make sure it doesn't just look like this, like text rolling behind it. But I'll just show you real quick how to do this. And from what I see, it seems to be at a group level. So I've created a group which has a header and an image. At the group level, you can set this property called, at the group level over here, position, I think by default is just default. But when you say sticky, that's what made it do that behavior. And visually, you can see the little pin that's stuck up here. That's sticky positioning. Again, you can certainly do it within it doesn't have to be at the very top of a page, like it'd be kind of silly, but I can really move this down here and make it so that, that's sticky now and it's in the middle of the page. Again, maybe a banner, something like that. You want to keep it on the top of the page. That could be an example of something you want to do. And this was just the very last thing too. As you can see, the positioning now of the list view control seems to be a lot better. And this may be hard for you to see, but I know in the past I've torn my hair out a little bit of trying to move things around between sections. It seems like now it's a lot more precise. So if I'm moving this, it's now saying, yay, I can move it, inside and out better.
Yeah.
That's all I can really tell in terms of the list view improvements. It's really drag and drop on block deletion too, I think is better now. I assume that means selecting multiples, and I thought we were able to do this before, delete all these blocks.
Yep.
So
yeah, the list view is so incredibly handy, and it's just better now. It just continues to improve. It
keeps getting better. Yeah, that's especially, I know someone is on here from the chat who mentioned building something in Squarespace. I mean, some of those other tools, for all their faults, some of their UIs of dragging and dropping, I think were miles ahead of where WordPress was. I think now the block editor is certainly improved a lot, and it's a lot more easy to work with and a lot less of a battle working with it. So that's 6.3. I mean, I can jump back into things in 6.3 afterwards if people have questions about it. But let me, let's see, I think we got everyone on the call who looks like they probably would join. So what I'm going to do now is really the rest of the time we have tonight is for you guys. And I know maybe what we'll do, if that's okay with everyone, we had a couple people mention stuff in the chat about things that either they want us to look at their sites or questions. So how about we start there? And what we'll do just to make things facilitate a little bit easier is we'll call on you and then I'll just unmute you and then we could just all talk together. So who was first? What was one I saw? Jill, I think Jill, actually you're first. So website review, jillnichols.com. So let me find you, Jill. If you want to unmute yourself. So tell us a little bit about your site first, Jill. Like what is your site about?
I'm an artist, painter, and so the site is about that. And I'm a teacher and do workshops and all that too.
All right, so I'll bring up your site in 1 second. So what kind of enhancements or things are you looking for
Well, I'm always looking for a good way to do galleries. And like if you see on my front page, there was no better way for me to put, I wanted to have all the different categories and image, so you could just click on them. And the only way I found to do that was in columns, which was, it's not the best, but so if anyone has any suggestions on better ways to do that, that'd be great.
So let's see so your front page is, and is this primarily, are you using this primarily as a blog or is like running a business or a little bit of both?
It's my website. I do have a post page, but my front page is static.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so right now is your gallery basically underneath paintings if I go here?
Yeah, and if you scroll on the page too, you'll see, yeah, that's one way I've done it. And on the front page, you'll find it too. So just scroll. So that's what I was talking about with the column. Yeah.
And each of these right now, if I'm looking at this correctly, each of these are a post. Is that how you've created them?
Different pages for different types of paintings. Like this is all my seascapes.
Okay. So I'll let others jump in with some thoughts too, but so the way you've done it right now, it definitely gives you more control, I'd say, in terms of, because basically you're almost using this like a custom post type, and that's maybe what it is behind the scenes. That allows you the ability to add a lot of information that's specific to paintings. So for example, if you want to put, let's say you want to do this as commerce or something, then you can put in prices, you can put in, all sorts of information that's really specific to your product, which in this case is a painting. But if you wanted this just to be the images themselves, custom post types or the way this is done might be a little bit of overkill. In fact, that's the thing. There's a lot of good gallery plugins that are good just for images, like displaying images in a masonry style or different kinds of styles. So, and for those, if all you're doing is primarily, let's say, a caption for the image, most of those you can just save the caption with the image itself and display them. So even I think with the one built into WordPress itself, let me get out of here. I don't know how many images I have in this guy. Let's go to a page here.
So I should also mention that I have Jetpack, which tends to overrule WordPress. So it gives me a tiled gallery. So the only way I found around that so far is having like a slideshow. Otherwise, I can either have, it's like a mosaic of tiles, which I don't really like.
Are you able to use the block editor on your pages and posts, like this editor I'm showing here? Is that what you see when you?
Yeah, most of them are blocks. I started the site in 1999, so there are some classic places around too, but a lot of the newer stuff is in blocks.
So the gallery, so this gallery block, if you have the ability to
I've used that a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is okay. It gives you some control. I think it gives you the ability to do some different sizing of things. I probably don't have a lot of images in. Well, I guess I do. I have a couple of images in here. Just for others. Sorry.
Yeah. Ray, just so you know, the theme is 2022.
Oh, okay.
So using a block theme. While you're looking at this, one thing that I know it's not directly related to what we're talking about right now, but I'm looking at, so I use some other tools. So I found out, I'm looking at like what plugins you're using through something called WP Theme Detector. Anybody been on this knows that's something that we use a lot to take kind of a look at behind the scenes. We also use a tool called builtwith.com, where you can get a look not only at the plugins, but things like hosting and all. I also ran GT metrics against to see the site speed, and the site is kind of struggling because I noticed from my end anyway.
Yeah, when I tried opening it up, it took a while. Yeah, for it to come up.
Yeah,
and I've been dealing with that. I went through, I talked to my
the host.
the host company and we cleaned out the database and, you know, I don't know if it's Jetpack that's doing it. I'm not sure what's doing it. I think it might be I use WooCommerce too, which is
Yeah.
probably the biggest culprit of whatever's
The
going
hard
on.
part is, and I'm wondering, it may even be starting with caching, is that the biggest challenge you have right now is what's called time to first byte, which is basically the
Yeah.
first time something is returned back to the browser
Right.
from
Yeah.
and that's very often more about the hosting itself.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because from an image standpoint, I mean, there's a couple, I mean, you'd have to say, I mean, I'm not sure how big these are in terms of file size. We'd be able to run a tool through that and see that. But yeah, I noticed that too, Peter. Like when I first brought it up, it was taking a while for this page to open up.
So you're using DreamHost. Now, there's pros and cons about DreamHost, but they certainly know WordPress. So I'm guessing it's a combination of things, but it may be as simple as, you know, you might see initial improvement with some. We're totally oversimplifying it, but looking at what caching you might use. Caching is having the server do kind of all the thinking already and just,
Right.
yeah, remembering that.
Yeah.
And if
And
I'm yeah.
And I we went through that last year.
Yeah.
You know, I was working with DreamHost and we did clean that up, but I guess maybe it's time to do it again.
Yeah.
But maybe to go back to, I guess, your first question about, and I'm maybe paraphrasing, so correct me if I'm not phrasing this correctly. Is it around, is there a better way to, I guess, display your gallery and sort of
Yeah.
maintain
Well,
it?
yeah, because the only way I could figure out how to do that with all the different categories, so I could, because I wanted to be able to link to each one, so you could press on the image and go
Right.
to a page.
But behind the scenes, Jill, are these actually pages or posts?
The only post page I have is if you go under blog at the top there,
Okay,
that's
so
my
you have a blog as well. Okay.
The rest of them are pages. And
Okay, that makes
yeah.
sense. And the pages themselves, normally pages you can't tag with categories. So do you have these as custom post types? Because I'm a little curious if these are underneath, or is this just the structure? Like, do you have like a parent page called paintings?
Yes, and then so those 6 thumbnails that I have on the first page go to those different pages.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason Ray's asking this is because the structure, if you were to save things as posts, you could use the tagging or the categories similar to just creating a page like you have. Ultimately, you have an image with a link directly to something.
Yeah.
But the main question is the best way to show that link in that image. Yeah, you definitely have options, using, and Ray, you already, the different the gallery blocks are available, whether core or adding to, and then deciding whether you want to use, right now you've got, and this is always to me a challenge with art, for example, right? So the actual piece is very often different dimensions, not square, for example, and then deciding.
Right. Exactly.
Show a square because it's representative on this section, or do we want to actually show paintings and then have it, there are all kinds of gallery plugins that will create the masonry or the, take
Right.
shapes and put them in. So you do have a lot of options there.
And I'm going to show, this is one for, this is a local nonprofit too, where I helped redesign some of their sites. This is an art league here in Connecticut, and they have the same thing too, but they just really wanted the ability to display members' artwork in a gallery and just really have captions underneath, because they can say painting by so-and-so or whatever. This is using Cadence, the Cadence theme, but it's also using the Cadence block plugin, which you can use outside of the Cadence theme. And within Cadence, there's a gallery plugin, which just gives you just a lot more flexibility than, like, you can turn galleries into slideshows. And slideshows are kind of passe these days, but there's a lot more styling and configuration you can do with that. So that's the thing. I think the default plugin from WordPress it really just lets you choose, I think, between how many columns you want to display your images.
Well, like I said, the Jetpack has overruled the WordPress gallery. Like,
I don't get that. Yeah, I guess that may be another question to look at if we have time to circle back to. I don't get how I can overrule the gallery plugin. But the other question, the reason I was asking about the pages versus posts thing is, if these were posts, and Peter, what's the name of, we haven't been to it in a while, what's the name of our animal shelter website?
Oh, build.hartfordwp.
Build.hartfordwp.
And
Oops,
right.
not
And while you're calling that up, just whenever we talk about Jetpack sets off its own set of concerns.
Yeah.
Now, Jill, why are you using Jetpack? Do you have a specific?
well, the main reason was for scams and stuff like that.
Oh, so we're anti-spam. So
Yeah.
Kismet and all those other.
Yeah.
So Jetpack has a lot of functions. Where it's gotten better is having more granular control over what you're kind of turning on and off of that. In a lot of cases, people use Jetpack because it's kind of the WordPress automatic. Hey, this is the plugin you want to use, when actually maybe for what you want, it's something like anti-spam B, which is something that I like, and then you don't need Jetpack at all, and then you can eliminate some of the problems that Jetpack might bring.
All right.
But part of that is, again, understanding, like Sue had mentioned, maybe turning off the gallery part if that is in fact, and I have not installed Jetpack in years.
Yeah, I've been screwing around with it for a few years, so I don't remember. I turned it off for a while.
Yeah.
I think I put it back on because I have so many images and it was doing something I was hoping to speed up my site, I think, with it. So I think that's why I turned it back on.
I would say where I was going with bringing up this example, though, is if you wanted, so this is more of a design choice and really an architecture kind of choice. If you wanted to keep your paintings as separate posts, I'm going to use the word post for now.
Yeah.
Then if you create them as posts, then you have the ability to use different things, like within WordPress itself, there's this whole query block thing, but there's plugins like within Cadence, you can use a portfolio block. And a portfolio block is basically, it allows you to do things like this. So behind the scenes, I think I forgot my password, but behind the scenes, what we did, go back to our YouTube channel, we do a series where we create this website, but behind the scenes, these pets are custom post types. So just like your paintings, for example. So this is a featured image, this is a bunch of information about it. So you can imagine something like this for a painting, where you would have
that would be awesome.
all that kind of stuff. So if you do it that way as a custom post type, then Cadence, if you're going to use the Cadence theme, there's other things that you can use like this. It'll automatically give you, like, this is a Cadence block in here, which then takes the information that you want to return back. Like in our case, we wanted featured image plus paid post title plus summary, but you can have these just being big fat images. So imagine paintings. These are just a whole bunch of your big paintings. Right. Someone clicks on them and they go to the detail. So it's kind of doing what you are doing here, but rather than as pages, you create them as custom post types. So that may be something just for an idea. Go back to our YouTube.
No, that's a thought. So I would make my front page more of a post, and so I'd kind of transfer everything into
posts. It lets you keep that separate. Like if you really have a blog, that is, you want to use your posts for your blog, but in this case, your paintings over time, those are really custom post types, unless you just want to take images, in which case then it's the gallery plugin discussion we had. So it's how how much information you want to store with those images. So I hope
it's I will think about that. Thank you. Those are all really great suggestions. I started creating this really before they made post pages. I think
and sometimes you're right. Sometimes you go down one path and later like I can
Yeah.
change it, but hopefully you don't have too many of them to switch out, so.
And well, quite a few, but so that would probably speed up my site as well, from the sounds of it.
Not really. No, I wouldn't guarantee that. So, again, I think
No.
there's something else going on with the site. If it's that so, as Peter said, if it's that time to return, was it time to return first byte or something? That's
Yeah.
that's almost a hosting thing too. Not necessarily, but something to look at.
Yeah, honestly, with your site, that would be the very first thing I would do. Because,
Okay.
anyone, even if you're directing someone and they, if it's taking 5 seconds to just load a page, kind of doesn't matter what you're doing after that, because they might
Right.
so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Real quick, Ray, there was a question about turning off Jetpack, and basically just real quick, the ability to first figure out what you are and are not using it for. Like, why do you have it running? And people have Jetpack running and for no reason at all, but because it was already installed or whatever. And then go through the process of, and we'll probably do this again. I think we did it already, but in terms of troubleshooting, that ability to say, okay, see what it's doing. And then you can always deactivate a plugin and then see what the impact is. And then if the impact is like, oh my goodness, I lost this or that, then you can always it and turn things on or off. So, experimentation by just deactivating and reactivating and all can be done. The one thing to be careful of is if, say, you're going to try a different gallery or something, that you don't just keep adding plugins and not, saying,
Yeah, that's how you end up with those 5 gallery plugins.
right. The slider plugin dilemma that is on every other site that has been around for a while, and there's 6 sliders on this site when you need 0. So.
Thank you. It's all very helpful. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Sure, no problem. I'm going down. Hopefully, I'm not missing people. I'm going down the list from the chat of earlier. So Paula had some questions about her portfolio site, and Paula, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
And maybe similar to the art site.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No. And it's nothing to really show the group. It's more just whenever I start to work on it, just a whole number of questions come up.
Sure.
I had subscribed to Elementor, and then it started to get confusing because there was too much going on, and I knew that it was probably quite simple because it's like a 4 or 5 page site.
Yeah.
But that I got kind of overwhelmed, I think, with just all the options. But so it's something that I'll have to figure out or try to do more on a one-to-one basis, because I don't have anything to really show the group.
I was going to say, is there a specific issue you're having with Elementor, or is it just kind of figuring out like how all the pieces kind of fit together?
I think it's sorting through what really would make a difference for my site, which I think it's probably pruning a good bit, and also how much I can do with the free site as opposed to what I really need to have a pro site, and pay them a bit. And so it's little stuff like that.
Okay. Well,
So-
if you dig through it, if you have questions specifically too, again, we bring them back here. Also, we're on the Facebook page too. You can certainly post questions there. I'm sorry.
I'll do that.
A quick comment specifically on using Elementor and all. So I've worked on a site where they had the free version, bought the pro version, and basically used none of the features in the pro version. And in fact, ultimately now, you don't even need Elementor for a lot of the things that people are using Elementor for. Now, if that's what you're comfortable with because you're used to it, I'm not saying, oh,
I'm
ditch
not.
right? But it'd be like, well, I got Elementor because I wanted to put columns, and now that's part of core or the block editor if you're using, the block editor that we demonstrate when we show things and insert a row block in core. And then, yes, we talk a lot about Cadence, just because we find it as a great, easy tool. I often talk about Astra and its blocks, and Generate Press blocks. See, there's a lot of them, but also, in terms of a free thing that gives you a lot of these functions, You have options. One thing to keep in mind is that because Elementor is sitting there as a content editor, page builder content editor, it doesn't mean you have to use it everywhere. In fact, I wouldn't use it on posts typically because it's kind of overkill for what you would typically do in a post, but in terms of page layout, and if you start experimenting with, well, I want to try to create this page using core blocks, but I don't want to use Elementor, you can do that. And you don't have to turn off Elementor. You could just start a new page and just not use the Elementor editor if that's something you want to experiment with. So you have options without necessarily going, very often we've got, folks who kind of throw it all away because they get advice to do that, but you don't have to in a lot of cases. And with page builders, Beaver Builder, Elementor, you have options to be able to do a page or a post that doesn't use that, and you can now use, the core stuff.
That's great. Wow. Oh, what a relief. Thank you so much, Peter. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Laura had a question about, or you're willing to share your sites. We're always happy. If you're having an issue with Google Fonts and the Create block. So this is the Ollie. I'm not familiar with the Ollie theme, but yeah, I'd love to hear more about what's going on.
Yeah, so I'll jump in real quick because one of the things that I'm very looking forward to. So Ollie theme is a great block theme. It's probably the theme right now that I'm most excited about in terms of using it. So Laura, it's interesting you're using Ollie, and Ollie is not currently on the WordPress repository where you go for anybody, you go to WordPress and if you go to install a theme, it's in the repository. If you go to wordpress.org, you can go to extend and themes, and then you get, but it will be in the next couple of days. It's the developer has done, he's a really great guy. He's involved in a lot of the groups.
So what's the issue you're having?
As far as this specific issue, I wish I could help because it's nothing I've done yet. But so because we'd have to load, you'd have to go to, it's Ollie, if you go to olliewp.com.
Yeah.
And then can you also, Laura, maybe before we look at it, just what is the issue? Maybe you can explain it a little bit. What's going on?
I think the issue is more with the Create Block Theme plugin, which you're supposed to be able to, download it and then manage your Google fonts. So I went and I wanted to add another font, and it said that it accepted it, and a little window at the top came up to say manage your fonts, and I clicked on that, and there's a window for managing your fonts, and it doesn't show up. I go into my because I did a child theme of it, I go into my theme JSON file, and it is listed there as one of the fonts, but it doesn't show up within my options of fonts when I change it. So,
and this is when you say it shows up in the options of that Create Block plugin.
Well, when I go to
oh, you're saying when you're adding text or something, it's not showing it as an option like in the text.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
So to talk it through the old way that fonts worked before theme.json, normally your fonts would get loaded in either your parent theme or your child theme in like functions.php is kind of the old way. At least that's where you would load it, and then you'd reference them in your CSS or something. So what you said, you created a child theme. Oh, Elisa, maybe do you have an answer?
This is a child theme of Ollie.
yes, it's a child theme of Ollie.
Okay.
I'm gonna just change
my simple, and I don't mean to dodge, thing is maybe contact Mike McAllister directly if that feels simply like a theme bug, like something that it just isn't being translated between, and because so many of those types of things are so theme specific that this.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that I've already have an email into him about something else.
Okay.
And I did my first GitHub issue.
Oh, look at you.
About something that it's glitchy within his site. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Well,
You're far ahead of us.
yeah.
So
it-
Laura, did you I'm assuming you uploaded with FTP or font files so that they could come up?
Well, the create block theme is supposed to do that for you, I thought, right?
Yeah.
But I also
You
did.
should, but if you have FTP, you could at least check and make sure that the files are in there and named properly.
The files are in the asset folder of the child theme.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the other weird thing. I'm like, I've done everything right, but some things.
I know what else, David. I know what else that Peter's thinking, which is if you use Cadence, you could just
Yeah.
right, Peter?
We don't want Cadence to be the answer to everything, but yes, that would be something.
That was what
No,
I used for the longest time until I finally said, okay, Elisa. But every once in a while, I mean, because it feels pretty embarrassing to just use it for one thing, to just use Cadence to add fonts. Because you know that, yeah, Sisu's saying the same thing. But yeah, it's really easy that way. I have to say, like, if you want to style something separately, it just makes it very quick, like that.
Yeah.
But I know that ultimately I'd rather just upload the fonts and do the right thing. It's just that sometimes I do the same thing as what you're saying. And I tried to use his because I thought it was so cool that he had the child theme option that you could download the child theme. And I also did that. And then when it came time to take the site live, I went, I think I'm going to go back and do not a child theme so that, so when he updates it's okay. And then when it's on the repository, I could use it and update it. But now he's updated it, which is my question. And I asked him too, like, so because you changed the whole naming convention for the front page, do I just go in and change, like upload all the new files, or am I going to lose all my styling? Is everything in the database? That's I'm still afraid. I still have that fear, like, otherwise I'm just gonna have to back up the whole site and try it again and see where, like, what if that works or not. So
I would say to other folks who are, again, more at the beginner stages, this is, we're getting to the bleeding edge of one of the good and bad things about WordPress, though, is there are things like this. It's an open community of people creating things that, like in this case, it's not even in the WordPress repository. Sounds like it's still being developed or worked on, which is fine. Laura knows what she's doing. She's spouting GitHub and all that stuff, which is great. I think for a lot of other people, though, yeah, that's why, sometimes sticking with the tried and true themes that have been developed and tested for a while is probably where other folks, I think, want to stick to. But yeah, I'd love to know, Laura, like you said, if you get a solution of that, or I don't have anything really to offer on that. I'd love to hear.
That's okay. I looked at Brian Gardner's calendar for tomorrow, so I might be booking a half hour with him tomorrow. Because it just bugged him, you get to a point and you're just like, because I'm trying to do some post for my business, and I wanted to do a before and after. So I was trying to change the font of a heading, to just make it pop a little bit more. And it wasn't working, but it looks really cool. I'm actually also doing color variations within Ollie. I'm doing a coffee house seasonal. And so I'm doing a spring and a fall. So I got some colors from Canva, and I was able to implement those into the theme, which was cool. So I know how to do stuff.
This is in the styles.
This
is in like the style cover book.
Yeah. Style
so color variations. Yeah. So those things. But for those who are beginners, I'm going to put a link into learn.wordpress.org. And that is the open source of tutorials and workshops. And we're even doing cohort pathways where you can do kind of a whole series of things. I'm one of the content creators. I'm brand new. I just did my first tutorial, posted that last week, and I hope to do more of that. So this is a great resource for that. So
thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. We point people to that all the time. So great to have you here too. Thanks.
Uh,
Well, since
and
you're talking Ollie theme there, Elisa, do you want to ask your question, which I'm sure I won't be able to answer, but you had something.
Well, I don't know. Actually, Peter, do you have an idea? I mean, what would you do? Would you just, I mean, ultimately I should just back it up and put it somewhere else and try it out that way. It's because as clients on.
Well, if you updates the theme and you've done a child theme, then nothing's
not a
gonna affect
child.
you.
I
Oh.
decided to go back to his original.
Oh,
So,
original,
yeah,
okay.
I didn't do the child.
yeah,
So,
this
yeah,
would be create a copy and give it a shot. I mean,
right. That's what I think too,
my
Peter.
guess is that it's going to be nicer than not. I think you would have put some caveats out there. I mean, it's no. And again, for anybody who's listening, you know, we're saying we're doing some name dropping. Some of this is because there's an extended community. Mike McAllister is a developer. He's really good. He's got some videos out there. I think what we're going to do is probably do a follow-up specifically on Ollie at some point, because it feels like there's some really good stuff out there by different things, but he's working really hard to make block themes very friendly, including a whole onboarding process when you load the theme, which is good. Having the documentation all there. He had a video that he just released today that really talked about it. I'm very excited about that being the one that I can recommend to people. And keep in mind too that there's this division for the most part when we're talking to folks who are saying, oh, I'm new to WordPress. You may be already very familiar and working completely in block themes, where many of us who've been doing this for a while are still using what we're calling classic themes, like the Cadence, like the Astra, those types of themes. So
or the hybrid theme.
Two different worlds going on. And you know, when you go to WordPress 6.3 and it says here's all the things coming, or here's all the new features, it's like that only apply to a certain percentage of the of WordPress users, which is sort of my soapbox that I stand on a little bit too often about. So I think we had a couple other questions too. I didn't want to miss those.
Yeah, I saw DK had one about template assignments. That's an interesting.
I think he dropped off though.
No, he's still on.
No, he's still there.
No, there you are. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm here. You know, for those of us that have been doing this for a while,
yeah,
in our chosen environments or whatever, to come into this 6.3, I've waited for a little bit before I've taken my foray or deep dive into quote full site editing. But I am humbled by trying to figure out how to reassign templates to pages. I'm playing with the Frost theme, and of course Brian's got his sample page is actually assigned to the blog page. So when you add blog posts, they don't appear anywhere. And so that tells me, okay, so it's just some template assignment adjustments to do. I can delete the existing blog template and make a new one, but I have not, for the life of me, been able to finger my way through rearranging or managing template assignments. And so I just haven't had time to properly research it yet, but that's what I find myself doing.
Frost, I think I have, as you were talking, I think at one point I installed Frost on this site because I think I was playing with it. Although, is it now in the official repository or is it not?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, it is.
Frost and Powder are his two. So we're talking, when we say his or Brian Gardner, who has been in the WordPress community for a long time and is really a great personality to support folks. And he's a designer.
It's a block theme, right? So it has the good old site editor here. And what the question is kind of, and this has changed a lot from old WordPress. A lot of stuff was hidden behind the scenes for you. So this is the idea of templates. So again, for beginners, typically when a post or a page, a blog post or a page is displayed, WordPress has this hierarchy where it determines what template it's going to use to display the contents. And in the past, you had to be a theme developer writing this stuff in PHP and coding all these things. And you were able to override them. And that's the whole purpose of child themes in the past too, is being able to create your own look and feel of a blog archive or whatever. So now with full site editing, this thing that has kind of now been expanded into WordPress, you don't have to be a developer anymore. You can use this site editor tool to assign templates to certain parts of your website. So for example, Blog home, that's one you were, I'm sorry, single pay posts or single posts.
Well, the
This-
blog home was it.
Oh,
When you
blog
go
home
to
is the one you
blog
want?
home,
Yep.
so when you go to the blog home, if you still had the blog in your menu, the native stock blog that comes when you install it,
Yeah.
because this is kind of what my clients will be doing. So that's what you see. When you went to that blog home template, you see Brian's sample page. So
Oh,
for
so-
some reason, he chose to put his Frost examples in the blog page instead of showing the blog posts. And so all I'm doing is correcting that for a standard environment. So this needs to be replaced with the posts.
Right.
So I've created a new blog template, I think.
Yeah.
And first off, I'm just trying to manage the assignments. I'd like to be able to
Right.
reassign the templates per page.
Right. And I'm trying to remember again, I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah, so if you go, this is where you're adding, for example, if you want to show blog posts, adding the query block, and then within the query block now adding featured images, those types of things.
But the actual assignment of this though is happening display post pages. Like, are you? I guess that's a good question. Are you able to change how and where this gets assigned through the full site editor, as opposed to actually going in and changing any of the template code itself?
I haven't seen it. So you can go into pages and you
Right.
can see on the right-hand side what template is assigned to that page, but you can't do anything about it. So you're in templates.
Right.
Go to,
That's fine. It's not showing in my pages though.
oh, that's interesting.
You have to go back one more, because there's a pages
Oh, I'm sorry.
template.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was right.
There you go. Yeah, so pick a page.
We go to privacy policy, for example. Yeah, so it's saying the template it's using is pages.
Pages. Okay, so now edit.
Yeah.
And on the right-hand side, you can see the template on the bottom right.
Right. And then
You would
go here,
think,
edit the
now,
template.
yeah, I don't want to edit the template. I just want to reassign it. I
Right.
mean, yeah, I eventually want to, I know how to edit templates. I figured that out.
But isn't this
But
one?
I can't
this-
reassign them once I do it.
But your question, I think, though, isn't, if I misunderstand, isn't about the single post template. Is your question about the one that's the post? I'm sorry, it's the blog home?
Archive.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so instead of seeing a blog archive, what you see is Brian's stuff.
right.
And that's fine. I wish he would have put this on the sample page instead.
Right.
But even still, I'm glad it's this way, because it exposes what I'm considering my weak point at this time. So I can create my own blog archive template, with a query block, and go through and do all that as you'd expect. But once you do it, how are you going to assign it to the blog page?
So if and again, I usually don't, my pages are, my sites are more, okay, now I got you. So this is what's happening, right? Did I just recreate the issue of, so I've changed the site now to say its homepage is the latest blog posts. And you're saying all the stuff that's displaying in here is really
Yes.
his template, correct?
Yeah. It's not the blog. It's not the real blog archive. Because,
Gotcha.
we still have the Hello World stock blog post that comes with every WordPress install.
Was this really meant to be, was this really meant to be used, I guess, this blog home? It almost seems like it's kind of a demo-y thing. Displays the latest home post is.
It's a good question.
Well, I guess if you go in here is where you could edit this, right, and make it be whatever you want it to be. Right. So in this point, let's say I didn't want the this group up here, and or let's say this first section, this group. If I want to remove this, I can just delete it, save it, and now if I go back to my site, there we go. Save. I forgot you can do this double for template. That should be gone. Well, unless everything's gone from my site. No, deleted everything. Oh, because I only saved the header. Interesting. Let me retrieve it back. So if I want, let's say I just want to delete the buttons. I delete the buttons. Save. Save. Okay. Now if I go back to this, now the buttons are gone. So I think I haven't used the frosting, but I assume it's not that you reassign it. You basically, this was almost there as like a sample of how to do this, and that you have to go in and actually modify all the content in there.
So let's approach the question this way then. Create a new page and see if you can choose the template that the page uses.
If I just create a brand new page.
Sure.
If I create a brand new page, it's not going to use that template. It's going to use the other template, right? So it's going to use the pages, a single page template.
Can you control it?
Can you
maybe it's a conceptual thing in my head I need to adjust.
If you want to do a template, so let me show you this. I know we're jumping into a little bit of full site editing thing, but let's say, and I don't know how his theme is doing this, but if I want to create a new template for a specific page, let's say pages, for example. Yeah, that's right. You can do it for a specific page. So let's say, what was the one I was showing? I was using a page. What was it called? There we go. This guy. And in this case, I can either start with a pattern or whatever. In this case, now this template is going to be assigned specifically. It's going to look like garbage, but this will be assigned to that one specific page that I wanted. So it's when you're creating a template, that's when you do the assignment of it in the full site editor. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that makes it sound like after the fact you're stuck. You have to delete it, start over, I guess. I can deal with that.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if I understand, that template that he first gave you, I'm sorry, the template that comes with it for the blog homepage, to me, it almost seems like that's just a sample of, here's what this thing seems like a sample. Here's how you can create I think what's confusing is it says blog page. It's almost like, here's a homepage template sample.
Exactly.
So,
And that's what I first tried to. I thought I was going to quickly be able to change that content, relabel the pages and the slugs and everything,
it's
and
like
create
filler.
this as the sample page,
Yeah.
and then make a proper blog page. But my logic failed me.
Laura,
that makes sense, because other tools do that exact same. Like you would basically create a template and then you pick. I have not used the site editor enough, but I'm experimenting with other themes while you're going through it with Frost, and it acts the exact same way. But it feels like exactly like, well, I went off to the side and I created this other template. Now I want to take that content and apply it to this template.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you. I don't see a way to do it, but it really feels like there should be. So either we're missing something or that's in 6.4. So.
Laura, what do you got?
I was going to say that's my frustration too, is that you would think that if you make a page, you should be able to pick the template that you want to use, or switch the template.
Yeah.
And there is no way. There should be a drop down on the left where it says edit template, or at the top, and or I'm sorry, on the right, when you're in that page when you're on the page, that you should be able to switch to a different template and stuff like that. So yes, I feel your pain, DK.
This also, I'm just realizing how much of a headache this can be maintaining a site a year later.
Well, the thing that's really different, you have to go in. I don't think it's changed that much. If you think about the classic WordPress, when you were in a page or a post, again, depending on your theme, you do have the ability to switch the template that gets applied if there are multiple choices that apply to that thing. So you can't use, for example, a template for an archive page on a single post. That won't work. I think the thing that's different, it looks like in here, is yes, you have to go into the page through the site editor. And here, I believe now I can switch this. I think I can switch this template, or no? Is it just letting me edit the template itself?
Edit the template.
Oh, Yeah, full site editing.
Yeah, I didn't use the classic, and I'm not coming from the classic environment and getting
Yeah.
confused by this.
No, that's
I'm
good.
coming
You're
from
probably
a-
better off that. Yeah, this is more.
I'm coming from a more conventional dev environment by my assessment. And
I think yeah, so I guess even from that sense, because remember the full site editor, just a reminder to folks too, there's two users in my mind, and others can certainly disagree with this. In my mind, there's two users of the full site editor. One is it's still kind of being used by theme creators. Theme creators are now creating the templates, but they're letting you, the theme owner or whatever, implementer, modify things that before you would have to go in and modify code. But in some senses, they're still creating that initial set of things for you. Your power now is that you can modify them, or you can create new versions to override theirs instead of creating child themes and things like that. So yeah, in some sense, before you start working with a site, you need to kind of know what templates are available. And yeah, if you say, oh, that one doesn't meet my needs, you're almost better off starting by creating the new template first before you start creating the content, I guess.
And I think it's easier for to hand it off to somebody if you create your own templates and kind of then delete all the other ones that you don't want your clients to have, kind of thing, and lock
that's
those.
exactly what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, one thing
is
I'm
this-
sorry, go ahead, Jean.
I'm sorry, is this new, like for 6.3? Because I used to be able to pick which template I wanted.
If you're not using this is a block enabled theme. So this
Yeah, a block 2023.
Yeah, so 2023, let me switch back to 2023.
And when it was 6.2 or 6.1, you could change your theme after you already made the page.
Wow.
You'd make the page and then go, oh, I don't, because
So
I
what-
made my own templates. I had a
So here
meeting
is-
page.
So here's
And then
2023. Let's see how this does things differently. So on my pages, let me go to my sticky positioning page. I don't see where inside of, so Jean, were you able to do it from full site editor here, or did you actually have to go into?
You're in 6.3.
Yeah,
And this was earlier than that. It was either 6.2 or 6.1. I'm not sure when, because when you're showing this right now, I'm like, well,
Yeah,
that's
this-
not what mine looked like, but it does look like that now.
yeah.
But my older ones that I haven't changed over yet, I'm able to switch themes.
Okay, well.
Yeah, there used to be an option under where the publish is in the summary of it showed the templates, and then you could pick between whatever templates were accessible. It wasn't like a default. There were, because you couldn't it wasn't all of them, but like if you made one, then it would pop up over there. So yeah,
Right. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about, Jean.
okay.
Is it not from the full site editor? Let me go back to the pages themselves. Like if I go
I think she's
to,
saying that full site editor 6.2 had it, but I don't, now I'm trying to find a site somewhere that I have that hasn't been updated,
yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, here's the template itself. Here's where I can change it, right? That's where I can change it inside of the page.
Where are you?
So I went into, I'm not in the full site editor. I'm in the normal page
Yeah. Okay.
admin. So when I went into here and I'm going to look at, let's say my WordPress demo thing, I edit the page through the regular old block editor. In here, I can click on my template and say, what template do I want it to use?
Yeah, this is an oversight that needs to be in a new release soon.
Yeah, because it's a little, I think that's the thing. Right now, there's some stuff for folks who are maybe not following. There's the full site editor. You can do some things in there. Sometimes there's some things you can only do in there. And then meanwhile, here in the block editor, you can do some site related things like switching templates, but you can't do everything here. And I think maybe it's still because we're in that transition period of, not everything is in the same place.
That's so interesting to spend the time thinking where it should be, and then you go to the page and there it is.
Yeah, I mean, this one makes sense because this applies to even if you're not using a block theme. I would assume this option is available there. So all I did here for folks who are, and this may not be real apparent, but I switched this to I switch this to a blank template, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but on this page, so blank template just has no header or footer.
There you
That's
go.
what it did instead of having a header footer. Yeah, so there were a couple. That was a great question, DK, because there were a couple of weird things in there. There's that blog page, which I hesitate to call a template. To me, that seemed like a sample. Like, I know even Cadence too. I don't use it too often, but Peter, I know you probably do as well. Like in Cadence, let's say I want to create a home page. Cadence itself, I think the free version as well, it gives you like starter packs basically to say, oh, I want to create a new page and I want to pick a yoga studio or something. It'll give you like a full template with, I think, like lorem ipsum text and blocks or, images and all that. That's kind of what that other thing looks like. It's just it's a starter that you should go in there and edit. What I don't know, you guys have to try this, is if you update that theme later, what does it do to the templates? If once you modify them, I assume it's not going to blow away your modifications, or will it?
No.
No? Okay.
I say that just based on remembering conversations about it and saying, no, that it's just done in a way that doesn't happen.
Right.
But caveat, I haven't experimented with it yet to know that for a fact.
I always use a child theme anyway, just in case.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've gone away from using child themes in some cases because a lot of the things I used to use a child theme for, I'm either doing it in the customizer or I haven't found for a lot of sites I need to go that deep. But yeah, this is a good example. Once you're touching templates, then I think you're certainly better off doing a child theme.
I just tried to reassign the template on the blog page, and it says this template cannot be changed.
Oh boy.
Interesting.
Interesting. Well, thanks for taking up my question. I didn't mean to take up too much time.
No, that's good.
Man down.
All right, so I'm trying to go through. I know we have like 15 minutes left, so if I missed, anyone else has a question in the chat, Jean, go for it.
Yes, I have a question. When we were talking about patterns, when you were showing us all the new stuff, you mentioned the block inserter tool, that if you have classic themes, is that so? Can I make a pattern with blocks and then insert it in the classic?
Yeah, let me show that. I'm glad. Yeah, so just
that's really
for
cool.
the sake of time, what I'll do is this site I have right now, just to show people again. Right now this is using the 2023 theme, which is a full site. It's a block theme. So in here, this is where we're talking about the pattern. So that pattern I created, the silly one with a button and all this other text. Well, what if I'm using a non block theme? So I happen to have several on this site because this is my demo site. So let me go to 2021 and let's switch that. So 2021, as soon as I did it, first thing you notice is I have the good old customizer, which again disappears with block themes. Now, if I go to a page, let's say I want to add that reusable block. I'll pick a new page, the sample page. Well, where do I see my reusable blocks? When I hit the block inserter, way down under, where is it? It's under patterns, I believe. Yeah. Explore all patterns. This is the new button. So I click on this. Now I can see the patterns that I've created. Where is my pattern? Oh no, these are the new ones. Where is my pattern? Hold on.
Yeah, it's normally right under, when you go to patterns, it should be my patterns.
Or is it still under? It's still under here. It's still under sync patterns. Oh, manage my. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I need to click on the icons first. These patterns. Let me back up. These patterns are like the community patterns that you can use and insert. Which we haven't done a lot of discussion on that, but that's another great tool. What I'm looking for are my reusable, formerly called reusable patterns. In that case, I can look at I can insert one right here, but if I want to edit these things, if I want to manage them, now this button was added in 6.3. So manage my patterns. Here we go. This is how I can edit them. So now I can change that sticky group. But what's funny with this is this thing, patterns. This is great. So we're going to try this for the first time. So this is my pre-formatted text column one. When I edit this, it opens up just this pattern now in the block editor, and I can do things like, for example, my action button. Let's say I'm going to change the color of that just to make it obvious and make the background something goofy like that. Perfect. And update it. So because this is a synced pattern, if I go back to a page that used it, like this one, the color now should be different. Here we go, the color is different because it was synced. I like this, but the thing I don't like is I'm thinking about this just off the top of my head is this menu thing I'm looking at, this patterns. I don't think this shows up anywhere else unless I'm crazy. Which I could be.
That's not, I have a solution for that.
It's like it, but by default, out of the box, it's a mysterious menu. Like, where does that menu come from? The only way I can get into it is by going in that weird way I showed you. Weird, weird according to me. The only way I can see those things is I go do this, I click on this, and then I click on this, and then, ooh, now this magic menu shows up. So I don't know. I think it's strange. Peter, how can you?
I'll show you. Ready? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to share the screen.
Always up share. Yeah.
Because this came up where you were kind of filled in a blank for me because it ends up being the same place. So that link, and I'm sure we're going to see that show up in at 6.4, if not sooner.
Yeah.
That link is important. So if you have a block theme and you're under the site editor, you can get to all of your synced and unsynced patterns.
Right.
And in Classic, you can't, except that same link works for both synced and unsynced. I went to my friend ChatGPT. I asked the question. I said, and in fact, for anybody who's tried ChatGPT, I thought I had it open here.
This is great. This is where we fit in I promise people cloud.
Yeah.
AI. Here's our AI.
Yeah, exactly. So let me give you a very quick ChatGPT lesson. So the first thing is I'm using ChatGPT 4, and the new ChatGPT also has custom instructions. So this is set up. I'm having a conversation with artificial intelligence. My custom instructions are basically saying what you can read here. I'm working on a WordPress website. I prefer to add code snippets to improve the usability of my site. This may be for the backend admin as well as for the front end, but most of my tweaks are for the back end. And then I say I would like ChatGPT to respond as both a coder. So I'm telling ChatGPT what I want, be both a coder and tell me what you're doing is basically what I'm doing. So I went through and I said, hello, I need help adding a new menu choice to my WordPress left side menu. Certainly. Here's the code snippet, how you do it generally. And then it gave me the reasons why. Then I said, very good, let's get specific. I want to go to this particular link, the link that you just showed, Ray.
Yeah.
And it said, certainly, you want a specific, say, and it gave me, and I said, and I tried it, and then it didn't work. I said, I've added it, and I get no errors. I did not see it added in the menu. Because, well, let's recheck the code. It seems I provided you with a direct redirection method, which might not be the best approach in this case. Instead, and it gives me a new code. So I took that code, and it worked. And then I said, this appears to work, but can we add the menu item under appearance rather than posts? To put it under posts. And it said, certainly, to add the menu under appearance menu, you'll need it tells me what it does, and it gives me this code. I copied the code. I went to my site. I have, you can use code snippets. I'm using CodeBox. That's the code that it gave me. It's enabled. I told it what it is and like CodeBox code snippets different ways. So now with this activated, if I go under appearance, I have menu manage patterns, which is what I've titled it. So now I've added it to my WordPress menu myself.
Wow.
And our patterns both synced and unsynced. The one thing you can't do, and this is confirmed by the documentation I found actually, and McCarthy's work on the source of truth, or I think she calls it, that says the one thing you can't do is you can't change a block pattern from synced to unsynced here in the editor. You basically would, go into a page, edit it, and then copy it, and then save it as synced or unsynced. This is getting to a level of detail, but that's where ChatGPT is allowing me to manage, manipulate, change things in WordPress, giving me new functionality. So now instead of doing what you did, Ray, go, where is that thing? And now if I wanted to look at unsynced,
Yeah.
now it's the only way you can do it is to go into the sync thing.
You know what, Peter, package that up in a plugin, put it on the repository, and you're going to make $1 million.
You make a whole zero and get a lot of requests for support for no money.
One thing I want to just point out for the new people is that a synced pattern is something that if you use it in multiple places, if you make an edit, it changes on all those pages. So usually a synced item would be like a call to action that you want to put on multiple pages. There is a way to unsync it. Once you do put it on your page, you can ungroup it and then make individual edits on those pages. So
yeah, that's exactly right. And where we continue to transition from like what were called reusable blocks that are now synced patterns, which actually makes more sense. I would have used the word global, but that's my choice. And yeah, to be able to, you used to be able to put a reusable block and then, like you said, convert it to just the blocks and then save it as something else. Now having the ability for patterns one way or the other, either global synced or unsynced, which gets saved in library. Unsynced is you post them and now you can change anything you want there and it doesn't change anywhere else. It's specific to that spot. So thanks for that.
And folks have used page builders again. That this has been something that's been part of at least Divi for quite a while too. That Divi library where you can do something similar to it. But I think the power of this is the ability to now share these. I mean, that's the thing too. We didn't show, but the ability to share these patterns with others. You know, because these are all core patterns. You know, as long as you're using just core blocks in them, that's the real neat thing about it. Is saying, hey, I built this thing. You know, this pattern, now I can either share it with the world on the repository or just share it with myself, you know, among different sites. That's the broader sharing of these things, which is really neat. Because I mean, yeah, that's it. Like how many hero backgrounds do we all need to create? Just like someone's done it already, you know, just use that as your template and starting point. So
I continue to be confident in saying that kind of the future of themes that we're used to from years ago, picking a theme, you know, for a, say, an industry based on the images that we're seeing in a theme are really going to be block patterns that are designed to work together, and that may come with some images that help you, you know, with that. And what's really coming in that area, and soon to be, you know, we talk about cadence, but the block patterns that they're going to have is he's applying artificial intelligence to it, so that you basically be pulling in a block and then giving it some parameters that it would generate images and text to go into that block pattern, so that, you know, you're creating what you're creating is already, instead of just like a lorem ipsum, you're actually using AI to pre-fill it in with stuff that kind of makes sense, if not makes sense a lot. So very cool stuff.
Well, I know we're down just a couple of minutes. So again, thanks everyone for sticking with us through the summer. If you're here for the first time, thanks for joining us. Again, what we're trying to do really going forward with our sessions for the rest of this year is really have this kind of time. You know, sometimes I know our presentations, we get carried away. Peter and I, we get carried away. Well, we underestimate some of these discussions. Like, you know, this ends up taking an hour and a half. We have like 30 minutes at the end. We're rushing for Q&A, but we really are going to try to, you know, spend a lot more time doing this, because I think this is where I learn a lot too, and hopefully everyone does, and across all levels. So again, whether you're here and you've only been using WordPress for a month or two, I know there are a couple of people on this, or you've been using it for quite a while and you're more expert. The thing I love about the WordPress community is we're all coming together and we're all willing to help. And with WordPress, for better or for worse, there's many solutions to the same problem. So you know, like I said, I think this is a great place to share amongst each other. So, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us through the summer. Laura, do you have something? Sorry.
Yeah, real quick, can you pull up the dashboard? Because there's a thing I never knew about, and I wanted to share with everyone, especially new people.
Should I go to just the current? Should I be on a particular? version or?
Go up to the
Oh, I know.
WordPress,
Yeah, go
the
ahead.
beginner. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So click on that.
Yeah.
So underneath this image, see these 5 different categories?
Yeah.
So the what's new will tell you what's in 6.3, kind of what Ray just went through. So that's awesome. And then the last category is the get involved, which is a brand new add-on, and it was a 10-year-old ticket that got closed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been requested for a long time. Laura, did you hear the podcast with?
Yeah.
10-year-old.
It was awesome.
Yeah, there was a
That's great, yeah.
podcast with the folks who push it through, and Courtney Robertson and the folks Olga and a few,
Olga.
yeah, who and this is contributors, and this was put out there 10 years ago, and now, and it's on the .org too, I think, and the onboarding for contributing is a lot of efforts going into making that easier, because it's understandable how difficult it can be, or how overwhelming, I think is probably a better word, that it can be, but a lot of people are very, very supportive. All the information we're getting too is both by trying and by by the community sharing things. My last thing is, we're coming out of summer school, we're going into some of our more presentations. We will reach out, but please let us know through Meetup or the Facebook group, or I'll put a form up on Hartford WP, the types of things that we can use as a topic, things that you're looking for from beginner to advanced and everything in between. We do our best, when we're an advanced topic, to also kind of fill in the blanks for beginners, to kind of say, like I always remind people, we're showing you something that you may not be seeing this at all in the WordPress install that you have, based on factors like plugins and themes. So
and we love looking at sites too. Sometimes having an advanced notice helps us too. Little things like, hey, how do I change this, or is this the best thing? So we're always thrilled to take a look at sites live here, or have a little bit of prep time as well. So that's definitely something worth looking at too. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good rest of your night and day. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your summer too. We'll see each other after Labor Day, which is kind of scary to say.
all right.
All right. Take care. Thanks everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.